So enigmatic and charismatic, gotta live static, gotta get at it, never pragmatic, cause we live tragic. I can't live average, to be alive's magic. Turn it up in the back cause I'm grabbing everything I want, get in my way and I'm stabbing. I'll be moving crowds till I'm 6 feet napping. They need another fix, hooked on like an addict. I got my eyes on the prize and it's changing lives. I wanna live till I die, make a difference, right? I wanna give those in need a reason to fight. I wanna live every day like it's my last night. I wanna change how we play the game, rearrange all the pieces till they say my name, push an agenda against doing what they say. I wanna stand up and start a revolution. I wanna start a revolution. I wanna start a revolution.
How's it going, everybody? Today, after a very long delay, I have the third and final review for the AMTS Racing Team, and that delay did pay off big time because, as I'm sure you're aware from the thumbnail and the intro, 52 Toys recently re-released the AMTS Racing Team, but not just a recolor. They redesignated this set as IB-16 Hermes, and this is the AMTS Racing Team EVO set. Of course, on the packaging here, it's listed as Hermes EVO, so in a roundabout way, they've kind of gone back to having the AMTS Racing Team put together in a single package. And for my part, I saw this thing released. I thought it looked great. I have a ton of red, black, and white figures already, and I kind of figured, well, you know, this is a great looking set. I'm going to go ahead and get it. And there again, the AMTS set itself has the designation IB-16. It's not the individual vehicles like they've been selling them as lately. For example, IB-05 Cheetah and IB-07 Gazelle. This is kind of a nice throwback to the way they used to sell AMTS vehicles, because up until just a few years ago with the space set, they were selling AMTS vehicles together, and the combiners would get the designation and not the individual vehicles. The individual vehicles are actually also referred to as codes. I like what they did with this particular release. Let's see where they go with this. I kind of feel like it's at a price point where it doesn't quite make sense for them to sell them together as a 2-pack, but I do hope to see more of this type of AMTS packaging. It's probably worth pointing out that yes, obviously I filmed this slightly out of order. For the conclusion of the Racing Revolution series, I did have something in mind to do for sort of like an extended intro, but then this packaging came in the mail and it was just like, God, I gotta show off this package and do the unboxing and the whole thing just so you could see it. So yes, you're seeing this review slightly out of order, but it's for a good cause. And let's take a look at what we got here. So there again, I think it's beautiful packaging. I love the artwork on it. You get this cool foil stamping with this great champion suit icon logo, whatever. And there again, we're going back to seeing the AMTS Duo as a release number, not as individually numbered as they had been doing. So in this case, with Cheetah and Gazelle, they're referred to by their codes. This is the 10th anniversary of 52 Toys Beast Box series, so we have that logo on the packaging here. Lots of cool checker graphics here, very on theme for racing. Or again, champion suit, so that's Cheetah, code 9, and code 10 is Gazelle. And this is the AMTS EVO Racing Team. So that appears to be the official name, Beastbox AMTS Hermes EVO. So that, again, is pretty interesting to me. On one side, you got code 9, that's Cheetah. On the opposite side, that's code 10, Gazelle. Now, something else I will point out here, like I mentioned before, I've got a lot of red, white, and black figures, and this happens to be a pretty nice color scheme, and I wanted to kind of trade over, so to speak, and get something that was a little bit unique and different. One thing I will point out, and we're going to see this for sure when we get inside the package, at least from the photos that I've seen, and it kind of looks that way on the package. The overall color scheme is essentially this cobalt blue and this sort of electric yellow. In some cases, it kind of looks like a greenish yellow, kind of a neon green yellow or something like that. The packaging itself is a little bit more of like a lime green or a spring green or something like that, but then you do see some yellow in the figure itself. So we'll see what it looks like when we get inside this thing, obviously. Around the back side here, we got some more details about the figure itself. You got all these little adapter parts that's pretty on point for AMTS vehicles. Because they're super modular, you can use these adapters to mix and match and come up with different vehicle designs and that kind of thing. And they're showing a little bit of that here. So you get kind of a jet mode here, or at least an implied one, and some legs. That is one code that you can do. And of course, there's the robot mode and the vehicles. Yes, this is all very nicely done. And interestingly enough, it comes with 3 Hexanoid minifigures. I don't know what the third one's for, but hey, more the merrier. I think that's pretty darn cool. Now, for transformation difficulty, I will point out that they're calling this a 4. Or Cheetah, I would say that's probably on point. Gazelle is one of the hardest figures to transform in the entire line. There's really only maybe 2 other figures that are as difficult as that one to transform. And the transformation itself really has more to do with all of these organic shapes and whatever, all these curves. It's just really hard to commit to memory how those pieces need to twist and turn and get into the correct shape or whatever, but I would call that one a 5. They're calling it a 4. Just to wrap up this second intro, obviously I showed you a lot of different codes and things like that for kind of the music video intro, if you want to call it that. And basically for the rest of this review, I'm going to show a transformation demo into its combiner mode Hermes, which I have not done in any of the other reviews. If you want to see transformation demos for the individual vehicles, definitely go back and check out the AMTS Racing Revolution videos I did for Cheetah and Gazelle. I have a link to those in the description. In the meantime, let's get this thing unboxed. Let's see what we got inside. We'll get going. Unsurprisingly, it comes with a lot of stuff. And we did get custom box chargers with these, which I think are pretty darn cool looking. So here's the parts for the bonus item, or at least what would have been the bonus item for the other 2 AMTS Racing vehicles. I did actually buy that, but to date, I still haven't taken it out of the package. I just never got around to it. But since it came with this one, and EVO came out, I'm definitely going to be showing off what would have been the quote-unquote bonus item with this set. And that's something else I guess I should say for this review. Since this did come with bonus items, and I had originally intended to show that off for the final release, I think I'm going to go ahead and show off how these parts attach to the actual vehicle modes. This is a perfect opportunity to show that. So, for the last part of this review, yes, I will be showing the Hermes transformation, and I'll be showing off these vehicles' accessories. Since they came in the package, I don't think you can really call them bonus items necessarily, but let's just call them accessories. So there again, this vehicle set did come with a whole packet of stuff. Got some catalogs, character cards, nice to have those as always. And we got instruction booklets for each one of the vehicles. Plus, okay, so I guess we do have an official name for it. We're calling it the Aerodynamic Upgrade Kit. Now here's something else this came with, which I think is really freaking cool. They actually went to the trouble of including a sticker sheet of all the little sponsorship logos that they've had on their vehicles. Yeah, you got some little black and white ones. This is a keeper. That was a really nice touch. Let's see what else we got in the box here. Got these very cool custom box chargers. I love them. All right, we got Cheetah. That is something I will definitely say. It is a little bit of a greenish yellow. It's not pure yellow like I had originally thought. It does look a little closer to pure yellow, at least on Gazelle. Man, just the overall color scheme of both of these is fantastic. And these little Hexanoid minifigures. So they've really actually been stepping it up with these little figures. Originally, they were all just a single color of plastic or whatever, just like had a painted visor. Now they're doing essentially kind of a two-tone. Got a little colored chest piece here, which is kind of cool. And there again, I don't know why they included 3 of them. I guess you need at least one to hang back and be the pit crew or something. I don't know. And that is the AMTS Racing crew. Very cool. So there again, let's take a quick look at this custom box charger. I think it's very tastefully designed. I love how they framed the front end in silver here with these silver side tabs. That looks awesome. And it's kind of a transparent smoky black here, dark gray rather, which does match the little figures, by the way, on their limbs. And you got number 9 and 10. That in itself is kind of interesting. So that would be code 9 and code 10, obviously. In case you're not familiar with box chargers, that's what this is, a box charger. They're pretty modular. They connect in a number of ways. You can connect them side by side, top and bottom, just like that. They're very sturdy. And they have a very nice opening and closing lid here. And obviously when the Beast Box or the AMTS vehicle or whatever is folded up into its cube mode, this is what you store them in. Very nicely done. And come to think of it, and if anybody else in the community happens to know, let me know if I'm wrong, but I think this is the first and only time that any AMTS vehicles have come with a custom box charger. I believe this is the first of its type. One way or the other, they look great. As far as the vehicle designs themselves, yes, they're both excellent vehicle designs. That's something interesting here is this one came with 2 attachment pieces. I believe that's needed for the robot mode. I guess they just decided to go ahead and attach it to Cheetah on the sides there. But for Cheetah's standard mode, basically those pieces don't belong on there. They don't go with this particular figure when it's transformed into its cube mode, I can tell you that. Yeah, you got those rolling front wheels here, lots of white. You got it contrasted with that sort of greenish yellow electric neon, lots of black on here. You got sponsorship logos on here, of course, number 9, and you have some accents of French gray on here, and silver markings on the back end here, so that is pretty cool. AMTS Racing, that's very nice. Now, Gazelle, on the other hand, is an interesting contrast here, mostly decked out in blue. There again, you have some accents of some silver parts, and again, you got that French gray, some machine parts on here, and again, you got that electric greenish yellow that contrasts very nicely with this deep sort of cobalt blue here. Yeah, overall, it's a pretty nice looking vehicle just on color and style alone. Rolls very nicely. And this Cheetah is no different from the original IB-05 Cheetah because its wheels have to be positioned in a very specific way on the ground. It's very long and low and lean. Its 6 wheels don't quite make contact with the ground as well as they should. So it does roll, but not extremely well. So there may be some minor adjustments that I might be able to make with this particular vehicle, but I don't know if you can tell on camera here, but basically that old front end spoiler here, it's essentially dragging on the ground. So very cool looking, but the design just needed just a little bit of tweaking and adjustment to get it to actually function like a rolling racing vehicle. So before I get too far ahead of myself, I should point out this particular packaging did not come with a cellophane see-through window or whatever, but it did come with an insert on the inside. Kind of wraps around the interior of the box there, which I think is really nice. Even though this particular vehicle set did not come with transparent packaging, I think it's just a testament to 52 Toys' attention to detail that they would actually include this printed piece inside the box, even though you can't see it on the outside, which is great. Yeah, you got a whole racetrack in the background there. Very nicely done. All the sponsorship logos and, of course, champion suit, code 9 and 10 there. All right, so we're going to combine these two into the robot gestalt mode Hermes. But one thing I want to say before I do that is I'm not 100% sure if the robot mode will carry its little pilots. So what 52 Toys is doing with the AMTS series is they're kind of veering in the direction of Diaclones, which are for the most part piloted mech vehicles and robots. I'm not 100% sure that Hermes can actually do that, can hold its pilots. So that's something I'll be looking to see if it can do when I have it combined, which would be a little bit different from their other AMTS vehicles because every other AMTS in the line is actually able to hold a 1-inch action figure. All right, so we're going to transform Code 10 Gazelle into the legs and torso, the lower half of Hermes. And starting off, we're going to split the spoiler apart and rotate the legs at this main joint here around 180 degrees. And from here, we'll take the cockpit and push that down into this cavity here, so it'll be flush up against the chassis. And we'll flip it around so we can see what we're doing a little bit better here. From these air intake joints, we're going to rotate that around slightly at about in that orientation, something like that. And we'll bring that down slightly just to get it kind of up and out of the way here. Then I'm going to rotate them somewhat inward so that you've essentially got them in this position. So now from these inner joints, we're going to unhook this tab here. Undo that one. We'll undo this one. And we're going to rotate this piece down about like so. The same on the opposite side here. Now, one thing that's important to note with Gazelle is it has a lot of twists and turns. This is one of the most difficult transformations out of every Beast box and Infinity box, and it all comes down to these specific joints here. So there's a lot of moving parts just in this one little section. You really want to pay attention to the instructions and how they tell you to turn the joints, because these are a lot of joints in a centralized location. Basically, you want to make sure that you're turning that specific joint and not moving some other part, because you'll throw everything out of whack if you don't follow everything explicitly. From this joint, we're going to fold it out sideways like so, about 90 degrees. The same on the opposite side, bring it out about like that. And then from this specific joint, we're going to rotate that part down about like that. There again, trying to take care that we don't move any other joints while we're moving that one joint. So you'll have about this orientation here. Then from this joint, we're going to rotate the whole thing 180 degrees. Now, one thing I want to point out with the instructions is they show you to rotate this part 180 degrees. However, they're pretty vague on this specific joint right here. This part acts as kind of a stopper, and it'll keep this part from rotating if it's in this upward orientation. And they don't really show that at all. So that's part of what makes this transformation so difficult. So you're going to want to rotate that around about 90 degrees. Then you can rotate this whole piece around from this joint 180 degrees. And you're basically going to wind up with it in about this orientation. Now there again, this one piece does stop everything from moving here, so then we'll go ahead and push it back up into position about like that. So we're going to repeat this on the other side. I'm going to rotate this piece around about 90 degrees. Then we're going to rotate from this joint 180 degrees. Taking care to get it in the correct orientation here. Then we're going to rotate that bracing part back up about 90 degrees. So we'll have it about in that orientation. Now we're going to rotate from this joint around So you got it about 90 degrees facing forward, essentially. Now from this electric socket looking piece, we're going to rotate that around 180 degrees. Going to repeat it on the opposite side here. So yeah, you'll have about that configuration here. Then from this joint, we're going to rotate that piece down all the way so that it essentially sort of straightens out. And there again, yeah, you just want to make sure you have symmetry on both sides. Just rotate that piece so that we got it out about like that. So yeah, basically at this point, you want the legs just sort of kicked out to the sides here like that. Now from this joint, we're going to rotate 180 degrees. Basically, we're going to get these spoilers turned inward. Rotate that around about like that. Now from this hinge, we're going to bring this up and over about 90 degrees, something like that. We're basically looking to start straightening out the leg. Twist the leg around, so we got about that orientation essentially. So the legs for Hermes mode does have toes and a heel spur essentially. So we're going to bring this piece up and over like that. You'll basically have an internal heel here, and that up and over. And then this piece on the back here will fold down and sort of cover the wheel. So you've kind of got like a boot thing going on here, which I think is pretty cool, kind of clever looking. We'll bring that down and over, cover that. Now, at least the way the instructions show it, the final transformation, you're going to want the central chassis here to be about at a 45-degree angle. So now this 5mm peg needs to come out. Flip that out. About like so. Then we're going to take the back wheel cowl and flip that up and over as far as it'll go and about that orientation. And we can rotate from this hip joint here down and around to get it an about correct angle. So these hip joints are kind of complex. I'm pretty much just guessing the best way to position it. You do have some flexibility to go, with whatever you think works best. And just in case I'm not being clear, this is my first time transforming it, so I don't know what the heck I'm doing here. You know what? I think these spoiler heels are looking a little bit goofy, pointed forward, so I'm going to rotate them back. Yeah, I think that looks a little bit nicer. All right, so I'm not sure how accurate this is right now, but it does essentially stand. I'm going to leave that be, and we'll see what this looks like as the legs and torso for Hermes. At that, we're going to move on to transformation of Cheetah. Now, I've always felt like Cheetah is a much simpler transformation than Gazelle, so we'll start by splitting the back half part here. Basically, you just want to get these back sections away from the chassis. Then the front section is going to rotate over and around 180 degrees, like so. And what we're going to do here is disengage these front wheels from the spoiler, pull that out slightly. We're essentially rotating this whole piece up and forward. Then we're going to bring the head out, so that needs to come back slightly and then forward. And it is on an articulated neck joint here. And what's kind of nice about this one is it does have a little bit of a blue painted on color here. Kind of a nice little subtle touch, and it's a little bit of fidgeting, but you do want to get the neck pulled all the way out. Now for the rear quarter panel, we're going to rotate this around 180 degrees, like so. With this section exposed, we're going to rotate this piece up 90 degrees. Then we're going to take this back piece and we're going to rotate that down about 90 degrees. Now we're going to flip these wheels so they're facing down about like that. So we're going to take this hind section here and rotate this engine cowl about 180 degrees so it's in that orientation. And that'll give it enough clearance so that it can get tucked up into that little space there. Then from there, we're going to rotate this piece up and over, and we're going to rotate these spoilers straight out like so. And they're basically going to reach up and over into that cavity here. Now from this hinge, we're going to rotate this piece over like so. Now we're going to start working on the arms here. This rear spoiler bit needs to rotate outward, so it's flat up against this part of the chassis here with the rear wheel. And we're going to rotate this piece around and over. We'll turn it around so we can see what's going on with this joint. We're going to rotate this elbow joint out. So that'll come out about like so. Now from this joint, we're going to rotate this up and over about 90 degrees, essentially like that. Same on the opposite side. We'll come around to the front side here, rotate those whole shoulder pieces forward here. So it's easier to show from the back side here, but basically we want to rotate this up slightly and then bring that down so that the shoulder comes kind of squared off to the top of the collarbone here. About like that. We're going to get the hands out here. Cool thing about Hermes is he does have opposable thumbs. So now we have this 5mm port, and that's going to connect to the peg here. Crossing our fingers that we got everything lined up correctly. Probably need to rotate this cowl down a little bit. Yeah, a little bit of adjustment here and there, but essentially that's the whole enchilada here. I'm going to have to push this way back to get them up in the camera. This thing looks awesome. Very, very cool. So a couple observations I need to point out straight off the bat. For one, this thing is enormous. Hermes has got to be the tallest AMTS combiner in the series. Maybe. One exception to that might be the jet fighter team. I forget the combiners' names. And basically, I'd have to compare this one side by side with that one. I know that one's pretty tall too. Definitely one of the tallest, possibly the very tallest of the AMTS series. And another thing also, as my fears are kind of confirmed, there's just nowhere to put these little figures. This combiner is not designed to carry its little Hexanoid minifigures. So I need to go back and reiterate, this is the 5th of the AMTS series, 6th being the recent release, the Rescue Team, and this is the only one that is not designed as a combiner to carry its little minifigures, which kind of breaks the whole conceit of the AMTS series. They're supposed to have little cockpits and be piloted by their figures, basically, and this one doesn't do that, so I don't know. Once it's combined, I guess you could kind of consider this an automaton, kind of a sort of a self-piloting robot, I don't know. And there again, I've got to point out how they corrected that with the latest release here. This is Hercules of the Rescue Team, and the cockpit is set up, so, I mean, it's pretty right there in the open. You can slide a figure in there super easy. I mean, yeah, you just open it up, you pop it in there, and you got your figure inside the cockpit there. And on the backside, you'd have to turn this thing around if you really need to get access to it. Rotate that around so you can get to the cockpit here. But essentially, this is fully functioning as a Gestalt mech vehicle. Now, size-wise, there again, like I was saying, Hermes is huge. This is a very, very tall robot. Proportionally, Hercules works great. I love the size and the proportions of that. But it is impressive that Hermes more or less towers over this figure. I mean, it's gigantic. So ultimately, it is pretty cool that this set came with an extra figure. You got the 2 pilots for these vehicles, and then I guess you might consider a bonus figure? But then it kind of becomes the issue of what do you do with them when you can't put them in the cockpits? I don't know. You need to find something else to do with these guys, obviously. That's something that would be interesting if 5.2 Toys did, is if they had some little set pieces or something like that designed specifically for the 1-inch Hexanoid minifigures. They kind of have that going on with the Hangar display set, which I just recently did a full review of. Definitely check that out if that's something you're interested in. That set is 100% great for AMTS vehicles if you need a backdrop for these figures. So anyways, last thing I want to talk about here is getting these set up with a aerodynamic upgrade kit. So I'm going to go ahead and pop these pieces off here. There again, in the instructions, they do point out that you should have some nippers for these things. So I'm going to wind up with some flashing and some pieces that are going to have to be trimmed and whatever because I don't have a pair of nippers. So basically, if you have nippers, they're going to save you this issue. When you twist and pull those pieces off of a tree, you're going to wind up getting some little flashing and pieces, some little bits here. If I can get my damn camera to come into focus. These little burrs, they kind of stick off the end, and what I'm doing is I'm just trimming off those pieces with my trusty Red Devil. So basically, I'm just saying that you can save yourself some time and probably make your pieces look a little bit nicer if you have the right tools to begin with. Which I don't, because I don't really deal with metal kits, but 5.2 Toys got me in that game, at least on a few things that they sell. Then we're left with this whole mess of pieces here. Yeah, basically, these are all the parts. Jeez, look at the size of that. So I think that tells you something about why Hermes needed to be so damn big. Because he's got a big gun. Alright, so we're going to start adding the upgrade kit to Hermes here. And I have to apologize up front, my recording space isn't really deep, so some of these steps may be a little bit obscure just because this figure is so damn tall. And I need to be able to reach over and get these parts attached. So one thing I'm going to point out here is these adapter pieces that came with Cheetah straight out of the package. I didn't show it in the transformation originally, but I'm going to step back here and say I think you definitely want to attach these to Hermes in its combiner mode because it has these long extended tabs that connect up inside the front piece here. And that's just going to give it extra stability in its combiner mode. Yeah, once you get those tabs shoved up in there, it's a really solid connection. So definitely recommend keeping that part on for the combiner mode. And the cool thing about Hermes having these long, skinny fingers and this opposable thumb is he can actually grip his rifle. Something I got to point out here is on the wrist, there is a peg and pose connection here. That'll attach to the side of the rifle here. You can insert his fingers inside the trigger there, get that peg and post lined up. Yeah, there's actually a tab and an insert post connection here. If I can get this lined up correctly. Very, very, very cool. It's definitely fiddly. It doesn't hold its pilots like a typical mech vehicle combiner would. But regardless, this thing is very well thought out, very nicely engineered, and it's just damn cool. I love it. Yeah, that aerodynamic upgrade kit really did add quite a bit to this figure. I mean, just with the addition of that long-range rifle alone, this is freaking cool. I am digging it. So we can touch on this figure's articulation a little bit here. Yeah, you do have quite a bit of bend at the hip and at the knee. It looks like the knee could be pulled out and rotated a little bit further. I'm going to try to be careful with that so I don't mess it up too much here. Obviously, you got a toe tilt here, so that's pretty cool. Arms can swing out to the sides there at the shoulder, rotate up and down, and you do have some bend at the elbow, which is probably more easily illustrated on the side that doesn't have that giant cannon. Yeah, there's kind of a couple of points of articulation there, so you can actually get the arm up quite a bit here. Head can turn left and right, look up and down. I mean, overall, it's a lot of moving parts, obviously, and like I said, it is really fiddly, but you could definitely get this thing into some poses if you want to get creative and you have the time to manipulate it. I am sorry, this is just damn cool. Alright, so that's going to close out this review of the AMTS Special Release Racing Team IB-16 Hermes EVO. Quick thing I want to bring up since I didn't mention it during this review. Does anyone else think this looks like a Michael Bay era Transformer? It took me a long time to make that connection, but I really do. I really think it does look somewhere between like an Optimus Prime and the Wreckers. What do you guys think? I appreciate you watching this video. These reviews take a lot of time and resources to produce, so please take a moment to leave a like, leave a comment, or share it on social to help keep the channel alive. Thanks! I'll catch you on the next lab.
I don't break down, you can never break me. I won't stay down, pushing till I'm daisies. I'm on top now, while me kissing babies. Call me young.